Hey guys, welcome to my channel Soil and Margaritas. I am so excited to be making this video today because I am going to show you how I am starting a bunch of microgreens. And I'm very excited because I got some new seeds that I haven't tried for microgreens. So far, I only have tried cilantro, basil, and broccoli. And broccoli and cilantro are my favorite by far. Basil, not so much, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute, and I'll show you as well. Let me show you the seeds that I got from True Leaf Market. I like their packaging. Honestly, I'm very, very happy with their packaging. But I am going to start the broccoli seeds that I already tried. I got a pound, so I already have plenty of these seeds. And I also got some peas, and I already opened the container because 4 hours ago or so, I put them in a little bit of water. I'm going to show you all of that here in a minute. So I got some peas. I got some arugula, regular arugula. I got some kale. I'm going to try kale and see how I like it as a microgreen. I am trying some spicy brown oriental mustard. I think this one I'm going to like for sure. And I'm going to try some black oil sunflowers. And again, all of these are new except for the broccoli that I know that I will like. And all of these seeds here, broccoli and everything else, are about the same harvest time, meaning that they're going to germinate and they're going to grow about the same time. And that is why I'm going to start them in one single tray. I thought about dividing them in like the 5x5s, but I'm just going to try to make it easier. And I am going to use a couple of trays, one with holes and one without, so that I can blend all of these. And hopefully we get some good results. So I already have a bunch of seeds, a bunch of other seeds that are growing. I got some flowers. I don't have any vegetables yet, but I am very excited about this season, about the 2023 seed starting season. I have a lot of things that I am trying for the first time. I have a lot of things that are repeats, and I already kind of know what they like, what they don't like. But I know that I have a lot of people that are new to gardening, especially seed starting. And I have gotten a lot of questions about what's the best potting mix? Where do you buy your seeds from? What kind of fertilizer do you use? And all of that is great and everything. And as you do this year after year, you're going to find your own way of doing things in your own environment, in your own grow room or little corner in your house where you grow your seeds. I wanted to make this video because I have been doing this for 4 years. This is my 4th year growing plants, flowers, and vegetables from seed. And I just want to mention a few things that for those people that maybe just started this year or are just starting for their 2nd or 3rd year, maybe they're taking these things for granted. And I just want to mention them to help you or help that person that is just starting with seed starting get better, get healthier plants. And I just wanted to make this video because, well, there are a lot of things that I share here on how to do this, what I use. I feel like sometimes the smaller things don't get mentioned, and those smaller things, those small details are things that are going to help us get healthier and better plants. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you are an experienced gardener, this video may not be for you, but if you're just starting out in seed starting, I hope that this video helps you. So I am going to get my microgreens going, and I'll just talk about these things. But while I have these seeds out here and ready to go, the first thing that I want to mention is the importance of organizing and keeping track of the seeds that you have. And yes, this is going to be one of those do as I say, not as I do type of things, because I am guilty of not being the best at this. Organizing your seeds and keeping track of your inventory for seeds it's huge. It is a way for you to basically know what you have and how good is what you have. I recently went through a lot of my seeds. I am still going. I have one more tray to go, and I have a lot of seeds, you guys, and a lot of them I gave up on like 2 years ago. I didn't start them last year. I'm not going to try them this year, and I'm definitely not going to try them for the next year. And I gotta be honest, it is very, very hard for me to let go of my seeds, especially because I think about what if I decide to try them next year? What if I get rid of those seeds? And yes, I can easily buy those seeds again, but there is something about collecting those seeds that just, I don't know. I have to do better on that. And I have gone through a lot of seeds and I have gotten rid of a bunch. I share a bunch already. Checking your seeds and using some sort of system for knowing when you need to start those seeds, how early or how late to start those seeds. It's a great way for you to somewhat keep organized as far as starting seeds go. But also, as you collect your seeds, as you buy seeds, more than likely you're also going to be saving seeds. And those seeds that you originally bought the first year are going to get older and their germination rate is going to get lower and lower as the years pass by. Do yourself a favor, check your inventory, see how well the seeds that you have left over from years before are doing or are going to do for this coming year as far as germination goes. And keep track of those. A lot of people use old school systems of writing them down in a journal. Other people use digital journals. Whichever way you like to keep track of these things, just use one that you know you're going to be checking and tracking as far as your seeds go. And if you have a favorite way to track those types of inventories, let me know because I definitely could use one. I am definitely really bad when it comes to keeping track of your inventory. These are my cilantro microgreens, you guys. They have been here for about 17 days and they are getting really close to be ready to harvest. I am loving how these cilantro microgreens are doing, and my goodness. But do you see this right here? This right here is a sign for me that they need lots of water. They really need that water. And since I have my tray here where I hold them, and I have my bottom tray for watering, I'm just going to do this right now. And this brings me to the second point, which is using clean and fresh water to water your seedlings indoors. It may seem like common sense to use fresh water to continuously change the water in your watering can or in your sprayer if you use a sprayer. But by talking to a couple of people that have been doing this, I noticed there is something that people don't necessarily do a lot. Oh wait, this is a good thumbnail. This is a good thumbnail right here. Whenever I bottom water, I try not to do it all at once, throwing all the water at once, because I'm always afraid that I'm going to just splash. If you think about it, if you have water sitting here for weeks or even days in a room where it's warm and the water is just sitting there without being used, the water can get contaminated and it can go bad really quickly. So if you are using that water that has been sitting there for days in your containers, you are not going to get the best results as far as growing healthy seedlings. I have a 2-gallon hand sprayer that I use, and I fill that about halfway up, and then I also have some sort of watering can that I also have with fresh water. But every 3 days max, I am changing that water to make sure that I have fresh, clean water to water my seedlings. It's one of those things, like I mentioned, that it might be common sense, but not a lot of people think about this, especially when, you know, the water is just accessible. If you are far away from the water, I have to go to another place to get my water from. I don't have a sink here in this room, so I have to be moving the water constantly. But making sure that I use fresh water all the time is a key for helping the seedlings grow. Oh, all the water is gone already. I'm just going to give it a little bit more. That should be plenty. And I am going to check here in a couple of hours. I'm going to put it back on the shelf, but I'm going to check here in a couple of hours just to make sure that everything looks like it has plenty of water. And just like using fresh and clean water, quality water is really important. The quality of the soil that you use, whether it's seed starting mix or potting mix, can also be a huge key to being successful at growing your seeds indoors. And I feel like this point can be applied to a lot of things that you use for seed starting. The quality of the water, the quality of the soil or the medium that you use, the quality of the seeds, the quality of the light even. I feel like I have tried a lot of potting mixes out there, a lot of seed starting mix as well. And I can tell you from my experience with them which ones I like better. There are some that I'm definitely going to be a stay away from because they didn't work. They developed some sort of fungus. It could have just been that those bags were sitting there for a while at the store. Who knows? I just know that I have my favorites as far as potting mixes go. And you might have your favorites too where you live, where you can find them locally. But one of the things to keep in mind when starting seed indoors is that the medium that you use has to be somewhat helpful for letting the seed germinate easily. So using something like a seed starting mix or a potting mix that is really, really fluffy and soft like this one that I like here, it still has a little bit of big chunks of material, but I just move those out of the way if I need to. I am confident then the seeds are going to do just fine because this potting mix is just nice and fluffy, almost as good as the consistency of a seed starting mix. But that is just a personal preference. I am not using seed starting mix this year, but whatever you decide to use, just make sure that it's of nice quality, that it doesn't smell like chemicals have been added to it, that it doesn't leave some sort of color in your hands, that it's not growing something when you bring it home from the store, because that has happened to me before. Just do your own research on that, because sometimes paying more for a potting mix doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a better potting mix. Just keep your eyes open on those things and find one that it fits all of your needs. So I am going to start 3, 4. What I'm going to do is that I'm just going to make rows of microgreen seeds. And microgreen seeds are just regular seeds like the mother plant. I just buy them in bulk because they are more cost effective that way. So I have my potting mix here ready. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to gently flatten the medium that I'm using. And I am not pressing down too much, just gently making sure that this surface is flat. Perfect. So I am going to start with the 2 that I have been soaking for the last 4 hours, which is peas and sunflower. Perfect. So this tray of different types of seeds: broccoli, sunflowers, mustard, arugula, kale, and peas is done. It shouldn't take longer than 10 days before I harvest these guys. I don't know how putting them all together in one tray is going to be, but I will let you know. We will find out. And I am going to gently spray all this fresh water on top of these seeds, especially the smaller seeds, because I don't just want to blow them away with the power of the water. If you're wondering about the way that I am tagging this, well, this is how I do it. Just a piece of tape, any tape, any color masking tape, and I use any I don't know, Sharpie or whatever color I have to write on them. And this is what I have been using for the last few years, and it works for me and I love it. Another tip that I can give you for helping you with your seed start journey is using artificial light. And yes, I know that there are a lot of you out there that use window light, some sort of south-facing window light, even an east-facing window light. And that's plenty for you. That's plenty for your seeds, plenty for what you use. I'm not saying that it's impossible to grow seedlings, to start your seeds indoors using just a window light, but it's definitely a lot harder than if you use any artificial light. I have a couple of racks, a couple of shelving units from those, and on each shelf I have about 4 LED strip lights. They're not fluorescent, they are LED lights, and I love those lights because they take away the worry that I have about providing enough light for my seedlings to grow healthy and stronger. If you start running into problems like leggy seedlings, seedlings just dying sometimes, or reaching for the light, bending one way to the other, looking into a LED system will be a lifesaver for you, especially if you start growing a lot of seeds indoors. This thing is ready. This thing is ready. And I need to put some weight on it. So I am going to grab a few books so that I have some weight on this thing. So now that I have these books here, I'm just going to try to put some weight on them. This is perfect. This is perfect. So I am going to put this tray under my LED lights on a shelf that doesn't have the lights on just yet, because they don't need light yet to get them where I want them to be. They're going to germinate here. Here in about 2 or 3 days, I'll remove this black tray from where it's pressing. I'll remove the weight off of it, and I'll see where they are. If they need another day with the weight on them, I'll put them back on. But basically this weight, this tray, is just trying to keep them all even on the surface. And once majority of the seeds have germinated, then I'll remove all of this weight in the tray as well. And I'll make sure to document that. But if you're not following me on Instagram, you should probably check over there, because sometimes it's just a lot easier for me to just grab my phone and put a couple of stories of how things are doing in here on my shelves. So if you want to follow me there, I'll have a link somewhere. If not, just check SoilandMagaritas. That might be a good way for you to know how these guys are doing right away. This room faces the south side of the house, and it is very bright in here. This room is nice and toasty, which brings me to my next point, which is air circulation. And in this room, I have a fan. In this room, I have a overhead fan, which is very powerful, and I love it because it can keep that air circulating. But also, I have a couple of smaller fans that I can just put here and there on a corner facing up towards my seedlings. Once they are full grown, once I have both shelves full of seedlings that are just desperate to go outside, I have all 3 fans, the overhead and the 2 smaller ones going, because that's going to help them stay in fresh, and it also helps them to grow stronger. Think of it like a nice breeze on a hot day outside. Having great air circulation also reduces humidity, especially if you have problems with mold or diseases. And not only that, but also as your seedlings are growing strongest, as they are almost ready to be put outside, the movement that your seedlings are getting from that air circulation, from that air being straight at them, it helps them to be somewhat ready to get outside, to get used to that wind, especially on those windy days. So it helps them to get prepared to the real conditions outside. So if you're just starting out this year with starting seeds indoors, definitely investing in a couple of fans for your room is a big plus. I have a couple of trays here going. I have my cilantro all the way back here. As you can tell, beautiful. Look, it already is looking way better than when I first showed you earlier. have the LED lights off because they can get really, really bright and they mess up my exposure. But I also have another tray of cilantro right here. I have it going right here. And I want to show you the weight that I'm using. This piece right here is really, really heavy, but it is the great piece to put on top of one of these microgreens for the weight that I need. This right here is basil, and I already harvested plenty of basil from these parts right here, but I have the middle here going. And basil is not one that grows really tall. And like I mentioned, basil, it is very, very minty. It does have an aftertaste of basil, but it's not like the real thing. So I am not sure that I'm going to grow this again. It was a nice try. It was a nice experiment growing basil as a microgreen, but I know that I am definitely not enjoying the flavor. I gotta get this guy some water too. As I am mentioning, this room being really warm, it's the perfect time to talk about heat mats. This guy, I think that I bought this my first year when I started growing seeds indoors. Because, you know, everywhere I check, they mention get a heat mat, get a heat mat. So I did. I wanted to use it, and it did really well, I believe, in the first year. And while having a heat mat is really, really important for growing seeds indoors, it's not always something that you need. And listen to me on that first. The room where I grow my seeds is in the upstairs room. It is facing the south side of the house, and it just gets really, really hot. It's an older house, so all of the heat from the downstairs comes up. And with the windows, with all of the windows that I have here facing the south side, especially on a day like today where it's really sunny outside, this room gets, right now it's about 76 in here. And I have a couple of windows just a little bit open just to kind of even that heat out a little bit so that I can survive in here at the brightest time of the day. But I don't need to use one of these guys. My room is already very, very warm. So I don't need to invest in one of these guys. And these guys are not cheap. These guys are kind of expensive if I'm being honest. And you don't need a heat mat for every single tray that you have, but it is helpful when you are just trying to get the seeds to germinate. And if you're growing in a room where it's a little bit on the cool side, like a unheated garage or in the basement where it gets kind of cool, you're definitely going to be wanting to get one of these guys. But in a room like mine where it's already warm, I don't need it. I definitely do not need this. And seed starting, you guys, just like everything else in gardening, is something that you're just gonna have to tweak as the years go. The more that you do this year after year, you're going to learn there are some things that you just don't need to do, or there are other things for your own environment, for your own room, for your own way of growing things, you might have to add. This basil is definitely due for some water. And if you're wondering which one is the most important of all the tips that I mentioned, I will say they're all important. They're all very basic things that you can do to help your seeds grow, to get them to be a strong, healthy seedlings. But the last one is getting really, really close to be the most important. Don't compare your results with other people's results. And I know that is really, really hard to do, you guys. Because if I am growing basil in my place, you expect your basil to look somewhat the same, right? About the same time. And that's not always going to be the case. The seeds that I'm using, the medium that I'm using, the room where my seeds are growing, the temperature, the light that I give them is not going to be the same. It's not going to be exactly the same as yours. So you can't expect the same results in the same amount of time as mine. And even if we both were using the same LED lights, if we both were using the same type of potting mix or seed starting mix, and both of us purchased the same seeds from the same supplier, there are a lot of things that could be different in that way. The seeds that you got might be from a different batch. The potting mix that I got might be older or fresher than the one that you have. And maybe you kept your water nice and clean And while I kept mine like from the month before, just sitting there. So your seedlings, as long as they are healthy and they are growing in your own environment, that's really all you need. And I say this because last year I shared a lot of videos. I shared a lot of the things that I was doing here as far as starting seeds indoors. And a lot of you messaged me, Roxana, I started my coleus the same day that you did. I waited for that video. I started my seeds. I purchased the same seeds from the same supplier and mine haven't germinated and yours did. And you may think that those seeds should be at the same level of growing, but maybe you're growing them in a basement while I'm growing them here in this room that is extremely hot. Or maybe you started with a potting mix that it's older and it's not of the best quality, or whatever. The things that you do, the environment that you are growing your seeds is going to really have a huge impact on what type of seedlings you get. So stop comparing the seedlings that you have, the seedlings that you are getting with the neighbor seedlings, because they might be growing on completely different environments with different things. So what do you think? Do you agree with any of the things that I am saying here? If you are an experienced gardener watching this video, or if you're just starting to grow seeds for the first time this year, is there something that you want like, okay. I really hope that this video helps someone out there. And if you have been struggling for the past couple of years to grow your own seeds indoors, maybe something here just makes sense for you. Thank you guys, and until the next time.